Hello, I'm back. Uh, just one second. Yes. Welcome to our next session, which is working with communities at the intersection. I have the absolute pleasure of introducing the moderator for our next session, Ms. Nyomie Prasad. Prasad is a climate, animal rights, and just food systems change advocate. She's an experienced moderator with a background in journalism and PR. With over 8 years of experience, she had led communications and partnership initiatives across international nonprofits and advocacy groups. Nyomie has organized and moderated discussions with prominent figures at COP27 and other international forums on climate solutions, food systems change, and animal rights. She most recently completed the Food Culture Trailblazer program with GAIN. Her expertise spans campaign management, stakeholder engagement, and strategic communications. Nyomie bridges the gap between science, policy, and public discourse to foster sustainable change in food systems. A very, very warm welcome, Nyomie. The virtual floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Apurva. Thank you for welcoming me, and I'm very glad to be here with all of you. And thank you all of you watching online or in Hyderabad, Delhi, or Bangalore. Thank you for joining us for what is the final panel of what has been an insightful and enriching 2 days. I'm thrilled to introduce our esteemed panelists, individuals who are deeply engaged in transforming food systems from diverse perspectives in India. We have 3 exceptional guests for you today, each bringing extensive expertise and experience to this discussion. Our first panelist, let me see if I can see her. I hope everyone's cameras are on. Our first panelist represents Anthra, a Pune-based organization founded 33 years ago by a team of women veterinarians dedicated to supporting farming communities, especially small farmers, pastoralists, Adivasis, Dalits, and women who are overlooked by mainstream development efforts. Anthra's mission includes promoting sustainable livestock production systems that align with diverse livelihoods and landscapes, addressing the complex relationship between livestock production and climate change, advocating for environmentally responsible and socially just research that integrates traditional knowledge with modern science. With livestock emissions contributing approximately 7.5% of India's total emissions in 2018, and 63% of the gross FOLU emissions, which is agriculture, forestry, and other land use, sustainable livestock and farming practices are more urgent than ever. Representing Anthra, we have Dr. Nitya Sambamurti Ghotge, its founder and director. Dr. Ghotge is also the author of Livestock and Livelihoods, the Indian Context, and serves on the board of the Center for Social Ecology, SENSE. SENSE emphasizes the interconnectedness of society and ecology. Her research spans veterinary sciences, ecology, and social sciences, with a particular focus on gender concerns in livestock care. So thank you for joining us, Dr. Ghotge. As those of us, working in climate, food systems, and animal advocacy recognize, no positive change happens in isolation. Nature operates as an intricate web of interdependence, and I think it's time we begin to realize and do the same. Our next panelist is Mr. Gajender Kumar Sharma, Country Director of World Animal Protection, WAP, in India. WAP operates globally through 14 offices, working to create a better world for animals. Under Mr. Sharma's leadership, WAP India has launched several impactful initiatives. Since joining WAP in 2007, Mr. Sharma has significantly advanced the organization's mission through program management, animal welfare, organizational development, and policy advocacy. Some of his key achievements include leading the animal welfare education program, which was endorsed by UNESCO India's Ecological and Earth Sciences Unit, spearheading India's first national code of practices for the management of dairy animals, developed in collaboration with the National Dairy Research Institute. He's also worked to integrate animal welfare into India's National Disaster Management Plan, making India one of the few countries to include animals in its national disaster response strategies. He's also leading WAP India's efforts to transform the food system by promoting responsible consumer choices and advocating for a shift toward alternative protein sources, benefiting animals, people, and the planet. And our final panelist, after which hopefully I'll stop talking, is Mr. Shailesh Sakharam Awate. I hope I'm saying that correctly. He's the visionary behind OOO Farms, a movement inspired by a simple yet profound moment, sharing a bowl of local rice and curry in the kitchen of an indigenous farmer. Maybe he'll tell us more about how that went in a short while. This experience ignited a passion that led to the creation of OOO Farms, which is dedicated to honoring and preserving traditional farming practices. OOO Farms is more than a venture. It's a community-driven movement that works across 63 village hamlets in Maharashtra and Gujarat, engages 2,200 farmers to protect indigenous farming practices, native seeds, and communal traditions. The movement has distributed 12,000 kgs of free native, desi, and regenerative seeds over the last 4 years to encourage biodiversity and agroecology. Mr. Awate insists on working with communities rather than individual farmers, fostering collaboration over competition. I mean, I'm just excited with this panel. There's so much collective experience here. I can't wait to learn from all of you. So I'd request Vinny to put on the first slide. So now, while she does that, and before we proceed, I've structured this conversation a little differently. I've basically thought of a few challenges, very large challenges that I think agriculture, whether it's livestock or crop production, is facing in India today. This is very little to do with traditions, but these are absolute realities that I think we must address. So we'll go through them one by one or two at a time. And even if I direct a question at a particular panelist, if anyone would like to take the question, please raise your hand or let us know, or just jump in. More insights, the merrier. Also, for those of you online or in Bangalore, Hyderabad, or Delhi, please send us your questions, send questions for the panel, and we will address them at the end of this session. So I'll get to, and of course, no conversation about agriculture in India can proceed without me stating that agriculture, animal husbandry, and fisheries are the backbone of India's economy. In 2023, these sectors accounted for 18% of the country's GDP. Nearly 46% of the population is engaged in agriculture. So any changes or challenges to the food system will directly impact the incomes of 650 million Indians involved in agriculture and the 810 million others who depend on them for food security, nutrition, and health. And of course, I'm not even talking about any food that we're exporting. So I'll ask the panelists, especially Dr. Ghotge and Mr. Awate, and of course, Mr. Sharma, to take 3 to 5 minutes to share your experiences. Tell us about the moment you realized that food systems change was necessary and why you found a solution in working at the intersections rather than working in silos. Tell us why you found that working on animal welfare, sustainability, women, Dalit, or farmer empowerment alone was no longer enough. I'd request Dr. Ghotge to begin, followed by Mr. Awate and then Mr. Sharma.
Good afternoon. Am I audible? Okay, thank you. I'll go ahead then. Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I express my I'm thankful. Thank you for inviting me to be on this panel and dragging a lot of you out on a Sunday afternoon. I hope it's not, and I hope the session is worth your while when you listen to what you have to say, what we have to say. Anyway, coming to your Nyomie, you put a statistic there: 46% of the population is involved in agriculture. I feel I'm now a senior citizen in this room, actually. I feel like we've been here for 33 years, and maybe many of you are probably, your ages are perhaps, you were probably born at the time when I entered this. And at that time, the reason I'm pointing this out is at that time, the statistic that was quoted in a lot of documents of livestock was 70% of India was engaged in agriculture, of whom 70% were landless, and 70% of these owned livestock. So that was a statistic that was often quoted, say, in the mid 80s, when I first began, early 90s, when I got into the sector and started working as a veterinarian. Anthra started about 92 or 93. So we see that there's been a huge shift in this statistic in about 30, 40 years, where you now have only 46% of the population of India, which is constantly growing, of course, being in agriculture, but you probably remains at still the same number of people who were there in agriculture 30 years back remain there. So that's just one thing which I want to park there for the group. As I said, since I've been working on this for so many years, we realized that this was probably before even the word intersectionality was coined, which I believe was somewhere around 2008 or something like that. So we began working actually with people in remote areas in the early 90s, when we found that veterinary services were not reaching the poor. And at that point, the statistic there was, I think it was something like one veterinarian per 7,000 animals or something. There'd been a study done by IIM at that point. And of course, there was a concentration of veterinarians either in the urban areas in the cities, or they were there located where there were dairy cooperatives, because that was the 80s and 90s were the big dairy cooperative time in the livestock history of India. And also, it was also the start of the poultry industrialization of poultry process. So if you look at that there was, of course, therefore, that statistic, it was my colleague and me, we decided that we needed to be there where the vets were not there. So started working with communities in the margins, which included Adivasis or Dalits or pastoralists. And when you work with these communities, you realize that a big portion of the work in the household to do with livestock is actually done by women in the communities. We were women veterinarians. It was a different time those days, so we started working with them. And then it was even back then that we realized that if you looked at animal in these, I mean, these were backyard systems or pastoralist systems, which are systems which have been there forever. They cannot function unless the resources or the inputs into the animal are not in order. So whether it's natural resources, grazing resources, or water. So when you look at that, you realize you need to look at the ecology, the environment. You've already looked at the social part of it, and only then do you start actually looking at what economic. We were working with people who barely got half a liter out of a cow, talking to farmers. So for us, even 1 liter from the cow meant 100%, I mean, a huge increase. So we wanted to make 15 eggs into 20 eggs. We wanted to make 1 liter into, and if anybody from the industrial community heard me now, they'd laugh that the production was at that level. But literally, this was the kind of communities and farmers we worked with way back then, and we continue with some success and some probably glitches we still haven't resolved. But I'll now hand it over to the next speaker. Thank you.
Mr. Awate, if you'd like to share how you realized and when you realized that intersectionality was key.
Right. So am I audible?
You are audible, but you're not visible.
Yeah, the reason is the network is very bad over here where I am. I'm really sorry for that. Okay. Talking about what was the key moment of, or what was the moment that we have decided to get into this section one. Even before I start, I'd like to clarify I'm neither leftist nor rightist nor centrist. I'm a farmer who has seen in last 8 years only crisis and no solutions, or probably this crisis is going to lead to the crisis of our civilization. One reason why I shouldn't be there, I mean, just a couple of months back, there was an article from the scientists saying that trees and land absorbed no CO2 last year. That is, carbon sink did not happen at all last year, ever since the earth has formed. So, understanding this crisis, or even one more article which was very frightening, was that the systems that move our waters around the earth is off the balance. That means now you or me cannot be sure about our Ganges or Narmada or Godavari, or cannot be even sure about the rainfalls. The whole systems are changed. If if we see what's happening, if you go on the farmlands, the worst is people who are producing foods are malnutrition or are without food. I mean, they grow food for you and me, and they stay hungry. I mean, the hunger index of our country is one of the highest in the world. A country which is producing so much of food, almost our country produces food for 3 years every year. It dumps down all the food into the sea after 7 years. इतना खाना बनने के बाद why does our country stand so tall in the hunger index, in the malnutrition index? There are so many questions that need to be asked, and because of that, we jumped into this uh, farming section, yeah, or probably not really farming section, but the food section. And we understood in the food section, the main culprit was agriculture rather than anything else. For us, agriculture is villain. And now what can we do about it? We cannot kill it because the whole human civilization has created this whole thing about farming as the only thing into the food systems. So all you can do is you can train your villain. That's what human civilization has done. We have trained our animals to get domesticated, to do certain things for us. We do certain things for them. Exactly for the same thing, I guess we also got into the agricultural sector just to train the agricultural part so that it doesn't go that bad. Wherein the fact is it has gone extremely bad. Uh, the solutions that we find is the soil is the topsoil has gone very bad, uh, and the reasons are I mean every kid knows it. There's too much of chemicals, too much of industrial agricultural happening rather than the traditional agriculture. So we went back into a section how the agriculture was at a better place than what it is right now, and we found our solutions probably in an era pre-existing in 1965, before 1965, how the country was. So we wanted to get into that particular era. To get into that particular era, we found all problems, all the world crises are starting from a seed. Seed is taken away from every aspect, whether it is farming, whether it is ecological, whether it is even thoughts. All seeds have been hijacked. They are commercialized. So we wanted to get into a space where we could get back to those seeds. And in last 8 years, we have collected a lot of seeds from all over the country, mainly the native heirloom indigenous seeds. Uh, Somewhere around 6,500 plus varieties of different species. Um, Rice itself being 3,146, since rice is the bowl of, uh, I mean, it forms the food of half of the population of the world. So we thought we need to get a hold onto the rice seeds. We are conserving more than 1,200 varieties of wheat or more than 700 varieties of corn and so on. What we have also done is we have also gone into the revival part of it. We are not just conserving it, we are also reviving those seeds. So we go to the farmers, take gram sabhas, try and convince them to grow that. That has worked. And we never try to tell them to grow it on a commercial scale, only to get it onto their food, so that when something is happening, I mean, at least our farmers are not going hungry. So we try to do that. I'm not sure if we are successful, but uh, farmers have started also growing it on a larger scale for the commercial part. We take care of it. We also take care of some schools, trying to put such subjects into the schools, like Gram, which stood sixth in the country for the experiential learning, where we teach kids that farming and farmers are not only about the poor thing, or uh, uh, I mean, the crisis that is there, we can, as instead of going outside the country, we can also go back to our farms to correct it. So in last 8 years, Triple Farms has worked in micro solidarity of communities. That is what we have done. Uh, all the communities, the major thing, major loss of this country is the communities are broken down. You can call it by the government, not necessarily just this government or previous government or the colonial government, but very systematically over a period of time, the communities were broken down. So what we do is we try to have a dialogue between these communities which are isolated, a meaningful dialogue, and then try to work on the subsets of soil, seed, farmers, then food and nutrition, biodiversity and agroecology, which forms a bigger part of what we do. This closes the gaps and probably creates, if not solution, at least it halts some bad ill effects of climate change, farmer crisis, nutritional crisis, or women empowerment, or the worst is greenwashing of our food. So seeds as a symbiotic ecosystem is what we have been working on.
Thank you
I'll
for that.
stop. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. I have goosebumps. It's just incredible the work you've all put in. Mr. Sharma, would you like to go next? 3 to 5 minutes.
Sure, thanks, Nyomie, and I hope I'm audible because I'm having some connection issues. That's why there were two login. Can
Loud
you hear
and
me?
clear. Loud and clear.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so first, let me take this opportunity to thank the organizer for the opportunity to share our work on food system. As you probably know, World Animal Protection is actually working on two strategic priorities globally, and one of them is the food system transformation. As part of this work, I'm so pleased to see that the topic we are discussing today in this panel is about how the local community and the farmers actually play such an important role to shape and transition the food system. Uh, to begin with, I would say that as an organization, we have been trying to address this whole issue of food system transformation in a very strategically focused, using the intersection or more integrated approach, because the challenge in the food system is basically there are many factors which really needs to taken into consideration before you can really see some kind of change. And as an organization, we feel that it is important to work on different aspects that includes from policy level to promotion level, and then also how you really make it more uh, balanced when it comes to from the sustainability perspective, to environmental perspective, to animal welfare, animal cruelty and suffering. So we are actually working to promote more equitable, sustainable, and humane food system. That's the whole focus of our work. Uh, when we say this, this each aspect actually has different elements of the work, and if I would try to summarize in a very basic way, we try to balance three E. One is the ethical aspect, then the environmental aspect, and the economical aspect of the food system. Uh, in India, we have been working on animals in farming and now known as a food system program for quite some time. And as you mentioned in the beginning, that one of the things which we did with the National Dairy Research Institute is the working on the welfare of dairy animals and develop this National Dairy Code. And this was basically meant for the farmers. So, how farmers can actually change their certain practices uh, in dairy farming to not only just improve the hygiene and the health and the welfare of animals, but also to increase the productivity and the sustainability of dairy farming. So, being an animal welfare organization, our focus is also limited to improve the welfare. And then, as part of the food transformation, we look at an ultimate solution to the problem we all are trying to deal here is basically how we move people gradually from animal protein to the alternative protein options. And that's where the our current focus of the work which we are doing globally and also specifically in India is that how we work with government to have policies which basically ask the corporations to have the animal welfare very much integral part of their farming businesses. We also work with the corporates because at the end of the day corporates looks for how they can continue to make more profit by keeping the production cost as low as possible. So how we can actually work with them to have some kind of a balance wherein the input cost by improving the welfare in the longer run remain the same or increase very marginally. So that's where the local solutions play a very very important role, and then how they can actually start pushing the industry towards more welfare friendly products, more sustainable products, more humane products. And the farmers actually very much integral part of that. So, one of the things which we are doing, as we all understand, that it would be very, very challenging for any organization to reach the number of farmers involved in animal farming, whether it is poultry, whether it is dairy or other animals farm for food. So we use the existing channels, which includes the government, extension departments, government institutions, as well as the corporates extension services. And that's why we as an organization believe that ultimately the change will take place when the people will own it. You can only push thing up to the certain level, but at the end of the day, somebody needs to pull it. And I think on the when we say about the food system, the corporates play a very very important role in this. So we really need to engage them and encourage them, and if required, I think we should enable them so that they can actually integrate animal welfare in their supply chain. So that's what we have been doing. And at last, I would only say that, in all this, the one who play a very, very important role is the consumer. And as we always say, consumer is king. And absolutely, that's where until unless the consumer demand, until unless consumer is aware and they know what they are consuming and they make responsible choices, unfortunately, it would be very, very difficult for challenging for the whole, farm animal welfare movement. So I'll stop here and very much looking forward to engage further. Thank you.
Thank you. That was already quite a knowledge-packed opening from all three of you. And so I'll move on quickly because we only have, I think, about 45 minutes left, and we need some time for questions from the audience as well. So I'd like to direct our attention to some of the challenges I mentioned, and basically talking about the state of food systems in India in 2025. And now all of you have already touched upon some of these challenges that I'm about to mention. So I'd like to begin with two, if I may, Vinny, if we may have the next slide, please. I'd like to begin with a few pressing challenges and work our way towards some actionable solutions, or at least accessible starting points, if we may. And so I'll direct these two to Dr. Ghotge and Mr. Awate for now, and then my next challenge I'll present to you, Mr. Sharma. So I'll start with number one. It's on the right side of the slide. A March 2025 study warns that if temperatures rise beyond 1.5 centigrade beyond pre-industrial levels, global food security will be at risk due to a decline in crop diversity and productivity. Now, Mr. Awate, I think you were kind of alluding to this. And I think, Dr. Ghotge, you mentioned this. The shrinking farms and declining farmer interest situation is between 1971 and 2015, the number of farm holdings in India grew from 71 million to 146.5 million. But this increasing fragmentation has made agriculture less viable. So now we have more farms, but they're smaller. And so it's difficult. I mean, monocropping, although some do practice it, but then how productive can a small piece of land be? And this is where I think experts like yourself come in. But now there's also a trend reversal that's being projected, although I think we're seeing it also around the globe already. But experts are saying by 2100, global farm numbers are expected to shrink by half, while farm sizes double, raising concerns about smallholder farmers being left behind. So I'll leave it to Dr. Ghotge or Mr. Awate, whoever wants to take this first. Vinny, do you mind going to the next slide? Thank you. So here I have some questions. Feel free to answer one or touch upon all of them, but just so that we sort of center it around this, as long as we touch upon this, if you have anything further to share, please feel free to share. So I'll just read them out. Are you witnessing the trends I mentioned or the climate impacts I mentioned on ground? And what opportunities do these challenges present for local marginalized groups such as women or Dalit communities, civil society organizations if they want to get involved, government bodies if they want to form policy, and farmer groups that are actually growing our food and who we depend on? How do these trends affect smallholder farmers and the future of Indian agriculture? What role does technology example like precision farming or smart farming, as they call it, play in making agricultural practices better for the farmers and animals? And can smallholder farmers and local communities you work with benefit from these advancements? If so, how? And also, do we need policy and government to come in, because some of these technologies are very expensive, and therefore multinationals and conglomerates and corporations are more likely to sort of be able to afford them? Are there any solutions or interventions you're currently working on to address these challenges? I'll leave it to you to answer now. I know there's a lot here.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll take this. I don't think so. Small land holding is a problem for growing food, or there is any challenge for growing food. India's 90% of the food is coming from small landholders. So they are the ones who are feeding you and me. So they are not the problem. The problem is the small minds at the policymakers end. Most of the domain experts have no knowledge about what temperature it is on the farm. They assume everything is 24 degrees Celsius, the one which they stay, and they make the policies. The other thing, what goes wrong is the hypocrisy in the policy. And this is not just about our government; it's across the globe, because all science and all statistics is hijacked by corporations. If this statistics which you have put right across now threatens us to feel how it's going to be in future, we need to be working on it and not promoting technologies which have destroyed it. I mean, how would we find answer in a technology which has destroyed the fabric of agriculture? And since 1965, since India has given up on hybridization, I mean, we have invited all of the technology and hybridized policies, what has gone wrong is every 5 year or 10 year, a new policy comes up covering up the previous failures, and then flowering or celebrating the new technology, saying that this is going to work and this is going to work. The fact is that we were never in problem since we have started farming 10,000 years ago. It is only in last 60 or 70 years we are in problem after farming. I mean, that is when globalization is happening. Technologies are used not to grow more food or good food. Technologies are used to have a hold on the food, that is to have a say on the food. That is where everything is going wrong. So a country which, for example, India, a country which had abundance of oil seed, today does not have oil seeds. We are shrunk down to 3% or 5% of total oil seeds production. Why is it so? What made us to grow something else? So India is growing a lot of food. It's not about the food. It is about if if for whom are we growing? We are growing it for the convenience of the trade and corporations, not for you and me to get fed by that food. So I think policy and technology in today's world has very less to say. uh, it is about understanding what really requires at the farmlands. And probably tribals are the last bastion for this wisdom. If at all we have anything to get from them, it is they would from whom we could learn. Like, for example, all the genetic modification can do everything, but it cannot make a salt tolerant variety of any seed. It cannot make a drought tolerant variety of any seeds. It cannot make a pest tolerant variety of a seed. All this comes from natural selection. It does not come from technology. Farming is about natural selection. Just as you and me, we get, I mean, humans make, I mean, we select our partners. When we select our partners, it's a natural selection we go for. It's not a technology which makes us marry someone. It's not the technology which makes us give birth to someone. It is how the natural selection happens. So I guess um, all that the government are coming up with new technology like the drones, they are only going to destroy the fabric of all the agriculture across the country. Like very recently, there was a news that in Uttar Pradesh, rich farmer drones are purposely destroying the poor farmer's field. So technology is going to go in the favor of the rich and not the poor. And again, your next mm, question was, are there any solution? Yes, there are. Of course, there are 100%. I mean, if we stop all the, mm, if we stop all the, I mean, given a fact like our farming today is dictated by Western science, which has evolved into farming very recently in last 100 200 years. Um, our farming dates back to 10,000 years back. So when we are talking about the solutions, we can probably take the help of uh, what we were primitively. And if statistics says that that means we are going to grow less food, that is completely wrong. Since I'm growing 3,146 varieties of rice, we have more than 60 varieties of rice, which surpasses any hybrid uh, production. Very recently, we did Tusha. From 1 kg of Tusha, you get 250 kgs of Tusha rice, which is not the case of hybrid rice. So, such huge production, the diversity is the key to the solution. Yeah.
Quickly just jump in before you go, Dr. Ghotge. I just want to clarify. So you do not see an opportunity to marry technology with some of the old practices? Because some of this precision farming, of course, a lot of it can be used to deploy pesticides and things like that. But some of it can be used to basically gauge the health of plants and soil. So farmers could actually get in real time feedback of how their crops are doing, through LiDAR sensors and things like that. But of course, this is very expensive technology. So as you mentioned rightly, rich farmers or big corporations are the ones that are going to benefit from this. So if there were to be policy where government was subsidizing this, or FPOs and groups were getting together and accessing some of this technology that would help them sort of just tweak and get a deeper insight into how their crops are doing in real time, do you not think that would be beneficial? Are you opposed to the use of this technology altogether?
No, the very primary thing about farming is anything which you have to buy is not farming, it's an industry. So if you are buying a drone, if you are buying pesticides, if you are buying fertilizer, you are just making an industry flourish. There is no farming happening in it. Farming is very simple. There is a seed, you just put it in the soil, it comes out. That's it. Why do we need to chase food for the people who have left their farms? The crisis is over there. It's not in growing the food. The crisis is in diversity, the destruction of diversity at the farmlands. The crisis is not in managing them. Pest is, see, the definition of pest is a very new definition in farming scenarios, as new as just 60, 70 years old. There was no definition of pest existed 100 years back. There is no local language, native language, which calls pest as a pest in a native language. Like you have a word in English, you do not have a word in the native language. And the reason is everyone coexisted. So a small pest will be eaten by the bigger pest will be eaten by the bigger pest. You have killed the bigger pest, and now you're worried about the smaller pest. So it is where this whole scenario is. Your plants are giving you enough nutrition to the soil. All the nutrition in the tribal land happens by mulching of the fallen leaves or the dead and decaying animals. It is as simple. What the world has done is they have made food extremely complex to eat, to grow, and to select. So if you want to buy a packet of rice, all you do is first watch which brand it is. Everyone is consuming brand and not rice. Then what you see is the label on it. Kitna protein hai, kitna carbohydrate. Why did you make food so complex? It is not that complex. So even growing has become very complex. Like a farmer won't believe that you can grow food grains without fertilizers, without applying pesticide. Now they call anyone doing that as a foolish person. That is how brainwashed we are. And that is how, and since we have done this in 63 villages, no pesticide, no fertilizer at all. And we have taken the help of our native seeds. I can confirmly say technology in this term is not needed. Let the farmer decide the technology and not the corporations.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Ghotge,
Yeah.
if you'd like to quickly come in, and then I'll move on to
Yeah.
the next question. Thank you.
Yeah, that was yours, a loaded question, so you should have expected long answers. Anyway, I'll come in very quickly. Can you just take me back the slide where the statistics were, the previous slide?
Vinny, do you mind going to the previous slide? Thank
If
you.
you could, yeah. So between 1971 and 2015, the number of farm holdings. Now here you're speaking of agricultural farms, so yes, but if you look at livestock systems, I think something different has happened there because you've had here during this period also the industrialization of livestock, and your session has also touched on that. So if you see what's actually happened is you've had dairy farms, commercial dairy farms, and commercial poultry farms having a huge number have grown. That has come in, and to the detriment of smallholding farmers, smallholders. Smallholders have stepped out of farming, and larger holdings have come in. So I think it's a little different if you look at the livestock sector as compared to the agriculture sector. I just wanted to point that. So you have smaller farmers, backyard poultry, or if you remember the dairy farming, Korean's whole statement about the backs of millions of women holding one cow and having, that has changed. Nobody wants to keep one cow anymore. It's very, very difficult to do it. So that you have larger and larger. Now you have, I mean, India has some of the largest dairy farms of 5,000 cows and stuff like that. I mean, You don't even find this in the West. So I think there's a huge change that has happened in the livestock sector, and it's a little difficult to grapple with because it's not really visible. Just as pastoralism is not visible in India. People, you'd have sheep crossing the road and there are pastoralists on the road, but you don't see them because you're programmed not to see that communities live like this. In fact, I'd sent 2 slides about how of pastoral systems. So what's happening is really not often visible to the consumers. We had our previous speaker speak about it. Yes, I agree with you all that children of farmers, including pastoralists, are stepping out of farming because farming is no more seen as something which is fashionable or and if people have other opportunities, they feel, oh, I'd be a farmer. It's kind of farmers are supposed to be stupid, are supposed to be backward. And it's been a trend. I mean, if you see Western countries, a lot of industrialized countries have barely 1% and people are stepping out of farming every day. So they've gone down to from 70% to 5% to even 1%. And India is clearly following a trend similar to that. So they do find it. But what's also interesting in India, new people are coming back into farming. You do have a process where you see young people probably disillusioned with IT sector or something like that, wanting to come back and try out new things. So it's a really, the shifting place. And I wanted to talk about this March 2025. I mean, and because you've raised it, here, people talk about agriculture as being this very negative thing. But if you look at the livestock sector in India, and I'm not talking here about the commercial livestock sector, but if you look at pastoralism, for 30, 40 years, we've been speaking like, oh, pastoralism on its last legs, people are going to drop out of pastoralism, will go, but that's not happened. Pastoralism has somehow survived. And pastoralism, unfortunately, we don't know how many there are because livestock census, the first one is happening right now where they're going to count the pastoralists, and it's not happening very efficiently, I can tell you, because I'm closely associated with it. They still remain invisible. But we really do not see how these people, as the previous speaker said, it is the pastoralists who have managed to get us breeds which are resistant to drought, resistant to heat, resistant to disease. And we haven't acknowledged this in all these years because, as other speakers have said, we believe that all knowledge only comes out of scientific laboratories. And I would agree with the speakers about the fact that the solutions actually lie on the ground with the farmers, with the communities, with the pastoralists, and not with the science. And before I end, just to give you an example of a technology which can go wrong. I think I would agree with you, Nyomie, that not all technology is necessarily bad. With our communities, we have the mobile phone, for example. To a lot of pastoral communities has been a huge advantage because now they can check where fodder is, they can talk back to each other. But I want to raise one specific technology, which is the sex semen technology, which I feel should be raised in a forum like this. So, of course, after the ban on cow slaughter, which India brought in around 2015, we didn't want that many livestock, also because the livestock climate change issue. There was a technology available in other countries called sex semen, where selectively, this is the only place where the female is preferred, actually. Females were preferred and the male could be, you could select for the female fetus and this was done. I mean, and so the cow could be inseminated only with the X chromosome. So you ended up having female sex. You always got a female offspring. This has been promoted by the government for some years now in India. And you find that this particular technology for a cow to be able to receive this kind of thing and have it make it successful, it has to be at a certain plane of nutrition, which is fairly high. No poor farmer can afford this. We again coming back to the takeaway is poor farmers cannot afford the technology. And so therefore, then the government actually made it very cheap. From a 1,000 or 2,000 rupee per insemination, they brought it down to something like 450, hugely subsidize it. But you still find that there are hardly any takers for this kind of technology. So you see you have a legislation which leads to another technological solution coming in, but this technological solution is not really helping the people on the ground, the original farmers. Probably the people who've really taken it up are commercial dairy farms, and we've actually led to a situation where we're benefiting commercial dairy farmers. So this is the kind of loop that has happened. And so before any legislation on animal welfare ethics, and you have this with the camel as well. There was a legislation in Rajasthan that camels, about the banning of slaughter of male camels, of course, and also about having all the camels coming back. And actually, you see people giving up. The camel herders in Rajasthan don't want to keep camels anymore because there is no incentive. The Pushkar Mela, you would see that the number of people there has reduced enormously. So you end up having legislations which are not thought through with what possible consequences they could have, may end up creating situations which are not what was expected in the beginning, or to situations which may actually harm a section of people whose only source of livelihood, say, was camel raising. So something like this. So I just wanted to bring this onto the table in the discussion. I leave it now to the next question, next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Vinny, if you could just skip to the next slide and then the next slide. So I'm going to rush through this because it's almost 4 o'clock, but this has been very insightful. And thank you, Dr. Ghotge. There's so many of those things that I didn't know. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. So I'd like to now, because we have speakers from so many different vantage points, even though they're working on a similar goal, but there's different vantage points. So I'll bring this in, and this will be directed to you, Mr. Sharma. I'd like to direct our attention to something that is looming. You hear about it in the news, and it's impacting the livestock industry. Zoonotic disease outbreaks versus antimicrobial resistance. 75% of infectious diseases originate from animals, with risks increasing due to deforestation and intensive livestock farming, specifically industrial farming setups. In 2024, an H5N1 outbreak in Kerala led to 256,000 birds either dying or being culled. And farmers are yet to be compensated as of January 2025 report. I don't know if things have changed since then, but this is due to shortage of government funding. Now, my question to you, Mr. Sharma, is one, what steps can be taken to reduce the risk? And does improving hygiene measures come at a cost to farmers and animals, and of course the consumer? And do higher welfare farming practices, example shifting from battery cages to cage-free systems, increase disease risks due to higher stocking densities? Because cage-free sometimes means 1,000 birds in 100 square meter space. Can you share any successful examples or interventions in this space? And does the size of a farm play a role in the success?
Thanks, Nyomie, and I'm glad that you brought in this point here. This is actually the one of the area which always, get a lot of attention from government, particularly. Because otherwise, you keep talking about the farm animal welfare, people don't listen, right? So they have their own way of doing things. They feel that what they are doing is absolutely fine. There is nothing to worry about. So when the COVID happened, we started talking about antimicrobial resistance in India. And of course, we all know the reason, because at that time it was something which, people felt that, what they are eating is absolutely very, very important for them. Health is everything. One Health became a very, popular discussion point at that time. So the solution is very simple. Is the high animal welfare is the solution. Now, how that solution we need to make viable and cost effective, that's where everything needs to be worked out. So as we all know that the poor hygienic condition is one of the reason because of the lot of disease, outbreak take place in the farms, the livestock farms or poultry farms or dairy farms and all that. And to compensate that poor welfare conditions, farmers and sometimes the companies who do this contract farming models, promote that, they actually provide antibiotics for preventative use. So preventative use of antibiotics is like they will mix in water or in feed every day. So in particularly in poultry sector, you will find that every day these birds are getting different kind of antibiotics just to prevent some diseases. And the result of that is not just limited to what happened to that product or meat coming out from broiler chicken or other eggs and other dairy products and all that, but the waste from those farms is actually destroying the other agriculture, the crops. It is getting into the air, it is getting into the soil, it is getting into the groundwater, it is going into the rivers and everywhere. So suddenly now you probably see in news also that people are actually talking about AMR. And when I'll share this very interesting example. The first meeting we participated when there was discussion around the National Action Plan on antimicrobial resistance. You will be surprised to know that there was nobody actually talking about the animal aspect. There was no one from the animal husbandry department also, wherein the reality is the almost 70% of the antibiotics produced in the world is used in animal farming sector. So people were looking for the solution without actually addressing where the problem exists. And still nothing really changed much. But I think there is some interesting development took place in last few years where we could see that at least the animal husbandry department people are very much integral part of these ongoing conversation around how the state needs to develop the action plan to combat antimicrobial resistance. So I think I would in the interest of time I would say I think the people who are actually working to develop these plants, they really need to be sensitized that the animal welfare is actually a very good solution to address the issue of the disease outbreak as well as the AMR as well. And then how we can actually support corporates to make sure that they provide the required training to their extension team so that they can train further level staff or the farmer level so that they can focus more on improving the welfare condition. And we have been trying to do that. But the one of the challenge as always we face in working for animals that the result and the authenticity, or is there any business cases there which prove that the high welfare will help us to control disease outbreak and all that. So people actually don't want to take any risk from their perspective, wherein we are saying that there is no risk in that, at least they should try it. But everybody want a quick fix. So when you talk about use antibiotics responsibly only for treatment purpose, they would say, okay, that's fine, but then we still need to give something to animals so they should not fall sick. So now the new trend is that the people are shifting towards the alternative preventative medicines. Some call them the Ayurvedic natural products and all sorts of things. And those also actually help them to grow these animals a little bit faster than their normal growth rate. So challenges are there. I think what we really need to do is that we all need to come together and keep pushing it at policy level to the corporate level, as well as engage farmers that what they need, they can do with maybe without any cost, because some of the animal welfare measures does not actually require any technology or any specific equipment they need to have. And I suppose free range and all sorts of things are the solutions. The more the animal welfare is integrated into the supply chain of food production systems, I'm sure these problems of antibiotics resistance as well as the disease outbreak will be controlled up to a certain extent.
I think Dr. Ghotge wants to come in. Thank you for that, Mr. Sharma.
Sorry for coming in, but I just thought I'd like to add to this. So what's actually happened globally is perhaps, of course, there's avian influenza, which is a huge problem. And the Kerala example is of last year. This year, this month we've had a huge example from Telangana, for example, number of animals were culled. Likewise, you have a disease in pigs called African swine flu, which we have in India. At least 17,000 animals were killed in 2021, even during when COVID was happening. We have lumpy skin disease, which you didn't have to cull anything. Animals just died. We have had huge outbreaks, and you have PPR in small ruminants. These have been coming. The answer that the governments and the FAO are actually promoting is biosecurity. And by biosecurity, under the guise of efficient farming systems, they are saying close the system. Have closed systems means have caged animals, produce these highly intensive farming systems where every input is measured. You have maybe machines or robots to handle your whatever the work of the thing, and you bring out these super sterile and safe products. But that is not farming, as some of the speakers said earlier. It is actually an industry. And we're missing something in this, but unfortunately, this is where farming systems are gradually going with, under the guise of this term called livestock efficiency. And we have to be, I think some of us here need to be careful that the animal, unfortunately, is an unfortunate cog in this really not very nice wheel. Thank you.
You always touch upon the next point I'm going to bring up, which is brilliant because then it just segues to the next point. Vinny, do you mind, please, switching to the next slide? So this is the last two challenges I'm bringing up, which basically sort of dovetail with what you just brought up, Dr. Ghotge. One is this water scarcity issue, which is 600 million Indians are under extreme water stress already. By 2030, India's water demand is projected to be twice the available supply, threatening food production and economic stability. Groundwater over extraction is worsening irrigation shortages for both crops and livestock farming. And the second point is fodder shortages are leading to distress sales of cattle, challenging the notion that the Indian dairy industry is sustainable because of mixed-use agriculture. And as you just pointed out, it's going more industrial. And then, of course, because they want these closed-loop systems, and there's a fodder shortage, and there's a climate crisis unfolding, the feed market is growing at 3.5% annually, reaching about 956.7 billion in 2022. Further increasing pressure on crop production, water resources, and it's becoming a main cost for smallholder farmers. So they're, as we've already uncovered, they're having to exit. And then it's having a negative impact on the environment. Vinny, next slide, please. So now this is for all three of you. If we can discuss this. How can Indian agriculture balance livestock production with water conservation? And should we be considering policy shifts to reduce livestock dependence in water-scarce states? There are countries like Canada that are investing heavily in plant-based food production because they see it's something you can control without causing severe suffering and also produce more food for everyone. And as Mr. Awate has already stated, we're already growing enough food, so there would be plenty for everyone to eat. And what role do civil society organizations, the private sector, and the government play in addressing these issues? and this is for all three of you, feel free to jump in. We're at 4:06, so I think this session ends at 4:15, but let's try and keep our answers short, but please, the floor is yours.
Okay, I'll jump in so make it easier. So I would agree with our previous speaker, there is enough. And I think it's really not, I mean, the whole issue of culling, which I pointed out in the previous session, that I mean, as a veterinarian, it's not something that I signed up for when I took my Hippocrates oath. That thankfully I haven't been there, but it's caused a lot of trauma to the veterinarians who have to cull animals. Believe you me, it's always been there, and I think we need to widen this conversation with a lot more veterinarians within veterinary, the colleges, young veterinarians who are coming in. So yes, we don't need to produce more livestock-based foods. I think that's it. Therefore, we don't need to fall into this trap of this efficiency dialogue that's been thrust down our throat by I think more so-called more efficient countries of the West. We have systems within the country, including, and I mean, pastoralism is not a static system which is being practiced as it was. I would there disagree with our other speaker, as it was practiced. It's a constantly evolving dynamic systems. Pastoralists are changing the breeds to suit new needs. I mean, I've worked with them for 30 years. I've seen it. So I think there is a huge role. I mean, I think all three have agreed that the farming systems should own farming and be the ones to decide the future, not being determined by corporations or by the governments or by multilateral organizations, and including maybe groups like the WHO and FAO, which seem to determine how food must be produced all over the world. Each country, each niche in our country has a unique spot, and I think that can be done. And I agree with this point on water conservation. We need to go into smaller, we need to deconstruct our farming systems, go small, look at more locals produce, local resources, and go back. I mean, I would say the future lies in, say, systems like backyard farming and pastoralism. That for me is my last tagline. Thank you.
I'd like to say one thing before the next speaker sort of addresses the question. It's interesting because whenever we talk about plant-based food systems in India, we're brought to the statistic that, our farmers depend and the marginalized communities depend heavily on animal agriculture for their sort of sustenance. But what's actually happening is that they're already out of the game. And then, as you mentioned, unless they have more than 5 to 10 cows, it's not profitable. It's not a sustainable source of income for them. So it is now a conversation about industrial farming. And I'll turn it over to the speakers. And also, there's a question from the audience. Since we're kind of almost running out, I'll just quickly add that here. And if Mr. Sharma, you could address this. The question is, why does cage-free increase stocking density? And I just want to say cage-free is not to be confused with free range. Cage-free is just basically out of battery cages, my understanding, into a slightly bigger space. So if you could come in on that, Mr. Sharma, just after you address the first question.
Yeah, thanks. So maybe, just to answer the question on the slide first. Of course, I think we all know the fact the amount of natural resources utilized for animal-based protein. So the solution is basically, people need to reduce that and move to the alternative protein options. Because in any place, if human and animals needs to fight for the same resources, we all know who is going to, suffer the more. So the solution here would be that all the stakeholder needs to come together, and I think civil society organizations, especially organizations working on farm animal welfare or working on the alternative protein, vegan options, and also the environmental climate change group. We all really need to come together and make efforts to put pressure on the government to look at maybe the areas and the policies where things can be developed at this stage. So over a period of time, we know what needs to be done. as the water problem continue to increase as the population increase, and water scarcity is going to be one of the big issue. So role of civil society is very important. And I think the more than that, as I said in the beginning, civil society alone may not have that kind of power. So at the end of the day, how we bring people power to support this movement. And that's become a very big challenge for any movement. And when we talk about the farm animal welfare movement, consumers look at things from price, maybe because they don't know what they are consuming, or they only get what is, they buy what is available. So that is the other problem. And often we see that these kind of issues are not really addressed by the media as well. So media needs to be engaged, influencer needs to be engaged by the civil society, so we can create more awareness among public, and then people, the consumer, actually can exercise their power to make the change happen. So that's what I think, and probably would be very interesting to see that how this farm animal welfare movement can be built as we move forward. On the question on the chat, I'm not sure, but cage-free systems are. It depends actually the what kind of system people use. So if you take hens out of cages, then you need a lot of space. So sometimes what happens that the people have a limited land, they remove the cages, but they want to keep the same number of birds there. So that means it will increase. So you have to significantly reduce the number you have according to the size of land available. So that's where the whole economic aspects comes into. So if you ask somebody to remove the cages, they might agree, but if they remain with the same number of birds they use in the size of the farm, then of course the stock density is going to be increased significantly.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. Mr. Awate, would you like to make a closing remark?
No, especially with the water crisis, I would like to say that I mean, if I'm having a sore throat because I'm shouting on the top of my voice, and doctor gives me amoxicillin and says, "Isse theek ho jayega," but I want to shout again. So am I going to take amoxicillin every time and then one day have an antibiotic lock? That's the case with water crisis. All the water crises are created; they're not environmental. So all of that could get into restoration if a sensible approach of not collecting so much of water, allowing the rivers to flow so that even other parts are having underground water, not removing the sand from the river, not allowing the bore wells to get into. I mean, all bore wells in our country are coming from corporations because they want to dry out our underground water. India's backbone was underground water once upon a time. I mean, you scratch the soil and you could see the water just below the soil. That great water was below the. So today we are into question: do we have to check our livestock for water conservation, or do we have to alter the livestock for the water conservation? I do not think so. That's going to apply, or that's going to even help into water conservation. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Vinny, if you could, we are at 4:15, but if you could just switch to the last slide. And there is a question from Hyderabad. Could you share the latest data on how much greenhouse gas was emitted from animal agriculture? I think in my opening remarks, I mentioned this. So maybe we can quickly skip back and look at that. I will skip the questions. If we could just go to the last slide. Oh, sorry, the second last slide. This was going to be open to discussion, but thank you. The thing is that what after having this whole conversation, what is emerging to me is that animal agriculture and agriculture in general is in a system of where it's like a perfect storm. It's a complex thing to do anyway. I mean, according to Mr. Awate, it's very simple. But for many, it's a very, very complex thing. And now it has a lot of challenges, like including climate change. And climate change is exacerbating a lot of the issues. So on the one hand, infectious diseases originating from animals has emerged due to deforestation and agriculture. But then agriculture can reduce its land use through intensification and improving resource use efficiency. However, then this intensive management confines the animals in their waste, which also fosters disease and emergence. And then raising demand for animal source foods creates a trap of zoonotic disease risks. So can win-win improvements like agroecological practices satisfy rising meat demand, particularly for chicken and pork? Intensive poultry and pig production entails greater antibiotic use, confinement, and animal populations than beef production. But then beef production, causes a lot of methane release and other issues. Shifting from beef to chicken consumption mitigates climate emissions, but this common strategy neglects zoonotic disease. So it seems like this loop of and we're just not able to catch up and get it right. So I will end here with these thoughts, unless there's some more questions. Is there India-specific data for this? Yes, I believe there is. Livestock emissions contribute about 7.5% of India's total emissions as of 2018. I unfortunately do not have a more late sort of a figure that's later than that. And 63% of the AFOLU, which is the agriculture, forestry, and other land use emissions. That's the only statistic I sort of have at the moment and off the top of my head. And I don't like stating statistics unless I have them written down in front of me. If any of the guests have an answer to this, any of the panelists have an answer to this question.
If I can jump in here, I think even the emission values are a bit, we have to take them with a pinch of salt, because a lot of the calculations were done for exotic animals using standards which are there in the West. We don't even have the equipment of the machines in India. I think we have one machine in Bangalore or something to actually capture methane emissions properly. And there would be a whole lot of things missed or not captured. So I think I would, look at the data from India with a huge pinch of salt. We're not even able to count the pastoralists who exist here, and we don't have the equipment machines. So it's all hearsay, it's conjecture, it's, using things like that. So we shouldn't get into the statistical part of it, but, go with the heart and the head, which says that I think, some in this slide also is actually about Western conditions and probably more to do with, say, the East or maybe something like Vietnam and countries like that. India does have a culture of vegetarianism. People are quite happy with eating, meat only once in a while, occasional meat eaters, occasional consumption. And I think if we go back to a more balanced system there, or go ahead, I don't want to say go back, I think we probably will have an answer. Smaller systems and much more in tune with what we have on the ground. Yeah, thank you.
All right, I think we will end this session here because we've gone over. I want to thank all three panelists for your time and your incredible insights. This has been very informative for me, so I hope it's been the same for everyone watching. Thank you so much for everyone from Hyderabad, Delhi, Bangalore for joining us. And with that, I think we go into a little break. So I will sign out, and will Apurva take over from here? Oh, and there is a feedback form for this session. So so that anyone watching, if we can learn how you enjoyed the session, and if there's anything we can do better or anything you'd like to hear for our next session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.